Thank you, everyone that's joining us today. We're really excited about today's webinar. Joining us today is Armin and Ryan from NOTCH, amazing partners based in the UK. Ryan's in the UK, Armin's in NOTCH and Norway. But they're both trainers for NOTCH. So today you're going to have an excellent guide into kind of integration with perception neuron, basic overview on NOTCH and the capabilities of it. It's some super awesome software. I can't be more excited to have these guys present today with Daniel. And I think today, I've been saying this as sort of a first because this really hasn't been done before to my knowledge, but we're really excited to show point-to-point cloud basically connection. So we're Daniel in Miami, and I'm forgetting to introduce everyone else, but I'm over here in my Power Rangers background. Daniel's in Miami, Ari and James are in LA. And what we're basically going to be doing is Daniel's going to be live driving the suit in real time from Miami, sending that data over the cloud to Armin and Ryan, who have access to that data. And they're going to be basically getting the data sent into NOTCH, where they're going to be able to then design, create, basically mix and match, do whatever they want in real time. And we're actually going to be able to see what that looks like as Daniel's moving in Miami. So I think this is the first for all of us. It's the first time that we're trying it. We're kind of testing this over the, getting this integrated over the last week. And we're really excited to kind of showcase what that looks like for all of you. With that said, I'm going to pass this over to Armin, who's going to do a quick introduction to NOTCH.
Yeah, I think it's wise to say a couple of words on who we are, like personally, and from the company. So I'll do my best now to share my screen, and you guys just let me know if it's actually working.
Go for it.
Is it working?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
There we go. I'm 100% professional. I have PowerPoint presentation ready. So, hello. My name is Armin. I am here with my colleague Ryan.
Hello.
And we both work for NOTCH. So a little background of mine. I am a VJ and I work with TV Productions. And I have been doing this for a good while. And I realized that when it comes to this line of work, content is king. So basically, the faster you can produce your stuff, the better off you are. Obviously, there are several tools in a market to provide you with the real-time graphics. I made my choices. I found my favorite. It's obviously NOTCH. So when I decided to play around with it, I really enjoyed the fact that you don't need to code. You literally just design. That's hands-on. One of the main reasons why I absolutely enjoy this tool. So as I started to fool about with the tool and test out different options and different capabilities that it provides, not only I was showing love to NOTCH, but I got some love back from NOTCH. So at some point, NOTCH put out an advert that they're looking for a lead trainer and a product specialist. So I was like, yay, let's join forces. I'm super happy to come in. So that's literally what I'm doing these days. I'm just, well, at least I did. I traveled around giving on-location trainings, but we shifted our focus a little bit more towards online options these days, just so it would be more accessible for people, as we are in an interesting situation now, all of us. I'm going to introduce Ryan a little bit. So here's Ryan. He was so we literally snatched him from uni. He just hopped out and joined NOTCH team, and we're super happy for that. He was one of the first employees. He's definitely one of the younger ones, but one of the best ones. So Super Ryan is with us. If you have questions, he is the man to ask. He will be very happy to answer. I think he's on chat, hands-on. So what is NOTCH? Well, it's node-based, a real-time tool that can actually deliver quite a punch. So we have quite a few little tools inside of NOTCH that, when working in conjunction, can build insane things. We got our start in touring industry. So this is a roster of bands and events that were using us from, let's say, 2014 towards 2019, and it's actually not possible to fit all of them to this screen right here. But if you're interested, please do go to NOTCH.1 and check out our showcase, and you'll see the current tours that are using NOTCH. So this is where we got our footing. Now we're moving forward towards more general motion graphics market, interactive installs, VR experience, so on and so forward. So as mentioned, we're node-based. This is how our UI look. I'm not going to stay here on the slide too long because we're going to be building stuff live as we progress through this webinar. One of the bigger things that we released lately is path tracing. So if you're a hip kid and you want to do some refractions and all that, that is available too. So if you choose to use Notch as an offline renderer for all the insane and intricate designs and renders, that's absolutely an option. During this voyage of Notch coming into the market over the last several years, one of our owners ended up meeting guys from Neutom in one of the trade shows. It was instant love. And all of a sudden, there was an integration. And I guess that's exactly what we're going to talk about here now. So I think I'm going to pass the torch to Daniel.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Armin. That was amazing. I don't think I can top that, but let's thank you guys. So yes, I'm Daniel, part of Neutom here. I'm a support tech here in Miami, located in Miami. More of you who have used the Mocap suite have contacted me. I've spoken out to you, and I've been, training a lot of users out there. We've been working with the Notch team for quite some time, and now, this integration is quite easy, straightforward, and has been introducing a lot of users who want to do live events for the most part. So I'm going to jump in. I don't have slides for this example. It's more of just showing how to connect our suite to the Notch section here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So just please confirm that you guys see my screen right now. Okay, do you guys see my screen at the moment?
Yes.
Yep, it states Daniel.
You're in full screen mode. Yeah.
Perfect. Full screen mode. So this is me live as I'm talking to you. This is Axis Studio. Currently, I am running Perception Neuron Studio for this demo. Perception Neuron Studio is Perception Neuron Studio Inertial and Perception Neuron Studio Glove. So we can do a full body top to bottom. This is the UI. It's pretty straightforward. And I'm just going to show you real quick what needs to be done to run the system. I've already connected my system here. I'm doing everything live at the moment. And it's all just a matter of outputting the data to Notch. And you can find the output information here in the settings. Here in the settings, we have BVH broadcasting. That's the data that Notch receives from our system here. I have Perception on Pro as a selection for the skeleton data, displacement on. And for this example right now, we're just doing a local IP. You can customize this as a static IP and send the data through a specific computer for a media server or any other computer that needs to receive the data. So by checking this on, that means I'm live at the moment. So that's quite simple, straightforward to set up the data to get exported to Notch. And then in Notch, it's just a couple of nodes to set up. And most of you guys have done this pretty straightforward. This is a simple project that I have going on at the moment. This is Notch UI. And I have simple project going on. I'm going to import a character that was set up through Mixamo. And let me go ahead and just to show you how to connect this, I'm going to click and drag a character to the UI, set the scale information here. Okay, and then once that populates in here, I'll go ahead and click and drag the character into the node graph here. This is a character that I have from Mixamo, a simple character. And then the beauty of this is just a one node that inputs our data into Notch. I'll click and drag the Perception Neuron Mocap skeleton data into the node graph, connect it to the roots file here. And what I will go ahead and do is just set up the IP address, which is local, which we set up before, and then just set up the port number. As soon as I do that, you can see that there's a little green skeleton in the back. All I need to do is assign that skeleton over to the character. So what I'll just go ahead and do, I can click and drag the end of this node and click it and assign it to the Perception on node there, or I can do it directly from the hip. As soon as I do that, all I need to do is just enable the rotate bind pose, and then this is live if I press play. So it's straightforward, pretty simple to do. I don't want to deep dive into other stuff. That's why we have the latest and greatest artist here, Armin, to show what you can do with the data inside of Notch.
Can I just really quick on that? I'm going to post a link to what Daniel just did, so you guys, because we've done a tutorial on importing characters into Notch. So I'm going to post that on there for you guys to review. If you don't know that process, it's really, really simple. And a good point that Alan brought up is scale is super important. What Daniel did there was he scaled the character. If you don't do that, you're going to get a super giant character that you may never see on the screen. With that, I'm going to pass that back on to Armin.
All right. So I guess I'm sharing my screen then.
Yes.
Let me know when you start to see it.
So behind the scenes, what I'm doing is I'm just sending the data over to our Mocap server. And Armin's going to go ahead and set that up in his local computer.
Some browser here. Or you see only Notch UI?
Mm-hmm. Notch UI.
Notch UI. Okay, so I'm going to give a bit of a shout out for Mixamo before I go to Notch. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to share again, and I'm going to share the web browser then. So Mixamo is Adobe affiliated page or service that has a ton of characters to choose from and a ton of animations affiliated to those characters. So you literally pick and choose whatever you want to use and then just add an animation of your choice, and you can go ahead and download. Or you can download that very mesh without any animations, because it's going to come in as a skeleton in a static deposition, and you can attach it to something like a motion capture suite, which is exactly what we're going to do now. So not only you can pick and choose from their library, you can actually upload your own. So you can just grab a depositioned OBJ file, drop it in, set the points for, let's say, the elbows and the neck or whatnot. It's going to take 2 minutes, and it's going to rig you up with a very, very standard bone structure, which will be recognized and read by Notch and by Neuton. So with that said, I have this little fellow right here ready to be imported into Notch. So I'm going to stop sharing again, and I'm going to share with Notch UI. Just hold a minute. There we are. So now we're in Notch. I'm going to drag and drop the model that I've just mentioned. And every single model comes in from every single different 3D package. So different 3D packages interpret size in their own way. So the one in scene scale in Notch could be very different when it's coming in from, let's say, Mixamo, when it's coming in from 3ds Max or Cinema 4D. So for fact, I know that if you're importing something from Mixamo, it's going to be 0.01 to have the accurate, correct human size. So I'm going to set the scene scale 0.01. So with that then, I'm just going to wait for it to come into the resources. Now I know that the model that I want to use is actually scaled correctly. So as I drag it into the node graph and connect it to the root, I see this model being rendered. Now I'm not going to cover the very basics of how Notch works and how this, what's the logic between nodes. I'm just going to build something, and hopefully it's going to be exciting for you guys to come back to, dissect, and maybe try out. And we have Essential course online available. We have a ton of tutorials in our YouTube channel. If you get interested, just fall back on those. You have all the information there needed to get started. So, connection to the perception neuron. So I'm going to type in perception neuron mocap skeleton. I'm going to bring that in as a node. So Neuton guys has their own node in our system. And for me to be able to connect to perception neuron, all I have to do is press on this little triangle here that expands the node. So basically now we see the 3D mesh and the whole skeleton, the whole bone rig. So for these two nodes to talk, I will grab the hips, the main bone, and I'm going to connect it to the first input of the perception neuron. As you see, things got crazy, and that's expected. That's actually normal. So first of all, I'm going to click on rotate bind pose joints by facing direction. That should help a lot. And now I need that IP address and server port that should be granted by a Neuton system. So you literally go to the settings and grab those two things, and you're good to go. So we had a test run with Daniel. So this is the IP that he's using. I'm going to type that in. And this is the port that he's using. So I'm going to grab that too. And lo and behold, we have Daniel waving to us, looking at us. That's great. I think I'm going to start by adding a camera. So we have a static and nice position, like a nice view. So the camera came into the center of the graph. I could easily probably position it somewhere where I like, or I can just find a viewport position like this, connect it to the root, and go for camera options, set the current view. So now the camera jumped exactly where I want it. I'm going to retweak it a little bit. There we go. Kind of happy here. Okay, so I think we should start by adding a little bit of lighting, perhaps working on the materials of the sky, and then making something crazy, like maybe adding some spheres on top of this body, because we have a cloning system. So I'm going to do exactly that. So I'm going to use a real-time lighting system. When I say real-time, I mean that this lighting system is not resource consuming to a point where you would have frame drop. So basically, voxel cone lighting is super cheap and super good looking. So the way you set it up, you grab the voxel cone lighting node and you grab that bounding box. So bounding box defines exactly where the voxel cone lighting should exist. And that's exactly why it's not expensive to run, because it's in a confined space. So anything inside of this cube will be lit up by voxel cone. Now you may have noticed that it's hashed out red. That's a good reason for that. That's just a little warning from Notch to me saying like, hey, you added the nodes, but you didn't tick the right tick boxes for it to actually work. So in the root node, by the way, everything concerning Notch is actually connected to the root. That's our starting point. So if you come from something like After Effects, think of it as project settings, basically. That's where you set the basic rendering parameters. So I'm going to tick on deferred rendering and high dynamic range. And all of a sudden, we have shaded Daniel. So if I was to grab this bounding box, you see as I move it around, it definitely changes the shading. Okay, so we have a very basic lighting now. I'm quite happy with this. We're definitely going to advance and add more lights, and we're going to go crazy with this. But now let's talk a little bit about materials. I'm not necessarily happy with this default. Like, it's a little bit boring. So I'm going to grab and plug a material node to the one and only input available here on this imported 3D scene, which is exactly for material. And I'm going to use some kind of a generator for color. So let's say Truchette, because why not? Because who is here to stop me from using Truchette? And I'm going to wait because I used the wrong input. There we go. We should connect it to the first color channel. There we go. So this is the very Truchette we're using. Perhaps it should be a little bit better quality. So 1024 by 1024. As it is a generator, we can just literally change the resolution dynamically to anything we want, because it's being done here in Notch, being created here in Notch. I think I like the straight line one more than the rounded one. This is getting somewhere. Let's see if we can make it a bit more funky. How about straight lines? Minus 45. Can I get a vote on either should it be straight or should it be rounded? And maybe Alex can let me know which one is the...
what people are asking for. People are like straight lines.
Straight edge box thing. Cool.
Yeah.
One more thing that we can do here to make this a little bit more visually appealing, we can have some reflections on this thing. So we can use something like HDRI image. So I'm going to pull in a resource now. I'm going to go to the assets that I have. And in my asset list, I have several HDRI images. I'm just going to populate my resources with those. Just bear a moment while they're coming in. So in Notch, you definitely can take advantage of HDRIs for lighting, for reflection, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this HDRI image to reflect and to light. For the ones who are not necessarily super familiar with HDRIs, it's an unwrapped 360 view of a scene, for instance. Still waiting for those to populate. Let's give it a moment. I grabbed quite a bunch. There we go. All of them are here. So I'm going to bring one in just to show you guys how it looks. So the cool thing in Notch is that you don't have to bring one after the other. You can actually cycle through and choose whichever the one you want from the dropdown. I think I'm going to stay with this for now. And I'm going to grab the environment map node. I'm going to connect it to the root. So this node right here is exactly what works with the HDRI images. Now this is connected, but it's not talking neither with the texture or with the lighting. So I'm going to make sure that first it talks with the lighting. So if I hover over the voxel cone inputs, I see that there's an input for environment map. So I'm going to connect it exactly there. And if I scroll through options, I see that it definitely changes the lighting. It's going to make even more sense when we're going to go to the material and we're going to say like, hey, Mr. Truchette, pay attention. There's environment map for you to reflect from. So I'm ticking on environment mapping. Now I can increase the specularity. There we go. So now we have reflections and we have lighting. I think I like the first property or the first option, the Leadenhall Market. This is how more or less it looks. Big shout to the place that I've got it from. It's HDRI Haven. It's absolutely free resource place. You can get anything from 1K to 16K, you name it. But if you're using it for notch use, I would recommend to sticking to something like 8K. Like you shouldn't go further than that if you're for real time. Thank you, Daniel, for being visual about what I'm talking about. That actually helps a lot. Right, so our basic scene is done. Our model is looking quite all right, quite fun. Let's do some fun, or let's do something interesting with it. We have quite a few tools in Notch. We have cloning, we have fields for, let's say, smoke simulations, we have particle system for all types of crazy, and we have procedural system. We're not going to check them all out, but we're going to check a couple of things. I think the first thing that we could check out would be clone to mesh. So I'm going to grab clone to mesh. And with the clone to mesh, we will be able to add a specific 3D model or primitive on this body, on Daniel. So for this to happen, there's a couple of things that needs to be connected. First of all, clone to mesh has to know which mesh should it be using. So in this case, it's going to be this 3D object right here, Daniel wave. There we go, this very one.
Happy wave.
So with this connected, as you see, all of a sudden we are not hashed out red. Notch says like, hey, you're on the right path. I think you're almost done there. And we need some kind of a 3D shape to actually use with this clone to mesh. So in this case, I'm grabbing shape 3D. So shape 3D is our primitive. So in the shape 3D, we have quite a few shapes available. It's literally just cube, sphere, so on and so forth. Like every single 3D package has something like that.
Shape Sandy?
Shape Sandy. For our Chinese viewers, if there's any. Shape Sandy. So I'm going to connect the clone to mesh now to shape 3D. And lo and behold, Daniel now is consisting of 100 clones. I couldn't claim that Daniel looks good now, so I'm going to work on that. First of all, I think the clone scale could be smaller, so I'm going to reduce that. And I'm going to change the mode of spread. So instead of vertex, I think we're going to go for spread over surface. I think this already looks a little bit better. Smaller still. So we have these shape 3Ds. We could probably set a material so this sphere is reflective too. It's actually using the environment map. So I'm going to do that. There we go. A bit more specularity, please. Yes, why not? But it's a little bit boring because every single sphere is actually the same size. I think it would be nice if it was random. So Cloner as a system has a ton of accompanying effectors. So effectors is something that influences how Cloner looks. So it could be very well be something from the looks to animation. So for instance, now I'm going to use randomize effector. So randomize effector used together with Cloner allows me to make random size of these clones. All of a sudden we have random scaled spheres on Daniel. I think there's one more that we can add, maybe turbulence. So it would be kind of nice if these actually are animating on Daniel. So I'm going to tick on uniform scale, and I'm going to put on the scale X value. So as soon as you tick on uniform scale, you don't have to change 3 values, you just change 1. It's a little bit fast. We have a property called animation rate, so I'm going to reduce that. Daniel, how do you feel? Do you feel good having all these spheres on you?
Feels great. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Obviously, we don't actually have to see the model. If we want to have Daniel a little bit more abstract, we can go for the model, and we can set the visibility to 0. Obviously, we should probably have more clones. I'm going to set it to 500. There is our abstract Daniel. Cloner scale. It's a little bit too much to my liking. I actually went for 5,000. That's a lot. I'm going to bring you back. I like to see you, Daniel. All right. One more thing that we could do to make this a little bit more sort of befitting, we could add color ramp effectors. So these spheres would change color from black to white, would just go pop up and down with fractal noise, for instance. So color ramp effector. All the effectors are connecting to the same input, basically. So it's one and only effectors input. So this node doesn't really work alone. It actually requires extra information. In this case, that extra information is color ramp. So color ramp defines what colors do we want to use. In this case, it's going to be black. Let's say it's going to be, well, let's keep it black and white. Now, you might be looking into this and saying like, Armin, everything is black. This is clearly not working as you expected and you described. You're absolutely right. We're going to go for color ramp effector, and we're going to change the source channel. So instead of position X, we're going to go for fractal noise. And there we are. So Daniel now is oscillating with fractal noise. Maybe we should add some gain and reduce the animation rate. So now we have something on the model. How about if we make the model as an emitter, for instance? Let's make sure that this model starts to spread particles, for instance. I'm going to do exactly that. One of the big things in Notch is particle system. We got it's probably one of the most popular features, to be honest, and it's relatively easy to set up. Just like any other bigger system in Notch, this would require its own root. So that's exactly what I brought in now, so particle root. And it would require two extra nodes. So root to hold everything together, and then emitter to describe how does the shape that particles are spawning from looks, and then the renderer to define how does the particle look. So in this case, we're going to use mesh emitter because we want Daniel to be the particle emitter. So there's my mesh emitter. It's hashed out red, and Notch is saying, hey, give me some information. What mesh? And I'm telling Notch, well, mate, this one right here, the very same as you used for cloner. And now for the sake of argument, let's do something very simple. Point renderer. So this is as boring as it gets. It's just a little quad. As you see now, as Daniel is moving, it's actually spawning the particles. And obviously, just like in cloner, we have options on how do we spread those particles on the surface. In the mesh emitter, there's either vertices, polygons, edges, so forth and so forth. I'm going to stick with vertices for now. The particles, by the way, live for 5 seconds by default. I'm going to leave it at that now. But let's add the fourth node to make this particle system exciting. And I'm going to add the one that I like most. So it's turbulence. It's literally one click trick. You just add turbulence, bump up the velocity amount to something like 8. Things get crazy. Things starts to look nice. Yay, Daniel, look at that. You're magical now.
Floating away.
That was not much excitement there.
Oh, boo. I mean, I was very excited.
I'm into dad jokes. I'm going to be dropping quite a few throughout this upcoming couple of minutes or so. So just bear with me. And if you support me, I would really, really appreciate that.
Everyone's talking about how much of a nightmare this particle spreading is for real-world COVID cases.
Oh, let's just not go there. It's magic. You know what? I'm gonna change things up. You know why is this having a very negative connotation? Because it's missing an extra specific thing. That extra specific thing is magic touch. So to add a magic touch, and to add that magic touch only on particles, we're gonna use render layer. So we're gonna make sure that these particles are rendered out separately from all the rest. And with that done, we can add a magical node called glow. Now tell me, does this at all look to you like a virus of sorts? This is more of a frozen setting than a virus setting, so please.
I love it.
This is awesome.
Okay.
You're getting slow claps from the chat.
Tough crowd. Okay, I'm going to delete this for now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring things back together. So if we're using clone to mesh to put things on top of the mesh, we might as well express our particles as mesh as well. We have this tool called clone to particles. So I'm going to connect that to the root. By the way, we have a ton of shortcuts that you can take advantage of. So for instance, connecting something to the root would be Control R. And now since I have clone to particles, cloner. All I have to do is tell this cloner what particle system it should use via first input here, and what kind of a shape should it output. So I'm just going to copy and paste this shape right here. There we go. Let's make it smaller. Let's add more operators, maybe like 500 or 5,000. And I guess we can make it in a random size randomness. Yes, please. In fact, these particles could be smaller, actually. Bam. So we don't need point render anymore. So not only we have meshes on top of the Daniel's mesh, we're actually now spawning meshes as Daniel is moving about. Obviously, this is not accounting for Daniel's motion. We didn't add any physics. We do have nodes for that as well. This is sort of just a random turbulence that's just going on its own path. I think I'm going to reduce the particle life a little bit, something like 3 seconds. There we go. And I'm going to do a little optimization trick. That's probably a good shout out for people who already use Notch. Notice that there's 2 places where we have particle count. So mesh emitter has a count of 30,000. Particle root has a count of 64,000. Why on earth there's 2 places with particle count? Well, particle root is your allowance. This is what your GPU allocates for particle system to run. Mesh emitter is exactly what you're taking advantage of. So this is exactly what you're rendering on screen. So in order to get the best out of your GPU, I would say use exact number that you're having on your screen, or the closest that you're having on your screen. So always reduce the allowance to a point that you're using. In this case, we're expressing everything through clone to particles, and we have 5,000 set there. So I'm going to say like 5,000 on the mesh emitter as well. And on the particle allowance, or the particle root, I'm going to set the very closest number available. So it's 4,000 or 8. I'm just going to go for 8. In this case, you probably wouldn't see much of increase in performance. But if you do something like particle trails, trust me, if it's geometry-based particles, you can gain up to 30 to 40% of performance. That's just a handsy tip. Since I mentioned trails, I might as well add that. So trail renderer. All of a sudden, we have little lines spawning from Daniel. And instead of lines, let's go for extruded geometry. So all of a sudden, Daniel is spawning extruded trails. Could it be thicker, maybe? Line thickness. Yes, there we go. I have to be completely honest, this looks really bad. I'm just going to delete this. Right, so this is sort of very, very fast introduction to several things that Notch can do. I'm going to move this bounding box so it actually hits more of the particles. So it's going to be here. It's going to look much prettier. So we tried out a couple of cloning tools and a particle tool. So this is all, let's call it pretty. What if you are building something that has to be interactive in some way? Well, we have a ton of tools to accompany that thing as well. For instance, what if we want to have a light that would only turn on when Daniel has his hands straight to the left and right? Daniel, can you show us that? So Daniel has his hands to the left and right, and we want a light to pop on exactly when he has his hands straight to the sides. Let's rig that up. How would we go about it? So we have a node called hot zones. So with hot zones, we can define the areas of influence or the areas of interactivity. I'm going to connect it to the root. And you will notice that hot zones has 2 inputs here. So it's a test point. In this case, the mesh or 3D object that we want to use. And then we have a zone. So where is that spot that we need to trigger? So for the hot zone, I'm going to start with the bounding box. I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to ask Daniel to keep his hands out so I can actually align this. Daniel, are you by chance not zeroed out from a Newton perspective?
Give me a second. Let me zero out so we can do that exercise.
There we go. That's another good shout. If you're building something with a motion capture suit, remember that there can be a little bit of drift. Once that happens, make sure to realign. So now we're realigned. We're in the very center. And I'm going to make sure that this hot zone is just where Daniel's hand is. There we go. Right. And I'm going to make another one for the other side. Daniel will be kind to keep this pose for me. That's very good. So we have 2 hot boxes. So the idea is now that whenever the hands are in those boxes, something happens. So we need some kind of a shape that would define where are those hands. I think the easiest thing would be is to attach, let's say, 2 spheres to his palms. So let's find palms in this bone structure. I see there's a neck, head, hands. Oh, there we go. That's probably the very hand that I need. So I'm going to add a shape 3D, a sphere to this hand. Let's see if it worked. Indeed it did. Daniel, please move about your hands. Wave it like you just don't care. Very good. I think we can just move it a little bit out, make it smaller. And let's just double check that it's actually hitting the hot box. I think it is. That's good. It could be closer, this hot box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another shape just like that to another hand. And I don't really need to see those. I just want to be sure that they're there. These are our test inputs. So I'm going to use something called envelope modifier to make myself a virtual slider. So for people who are working in let's say, performance art, you're probably very much used to OSC controllers or MIDI controllers. So think of envelope modifier as your virtual controller. So basically you get a slider. So on these shape 3Ds, I'm going to grab the visible property. I'm going to set it to 0, and I'm going to attach the envelope. Now with the envelope modifier, I can trigger this on and off. So I'm going to name this spheres on/off. It's just going to be easier for me if I have this as a little test file. So with this done, I have those 2 ready now. I can put this as a test points. Let's do that. Test point 1 and test point 2. So the rig is now complete. Now we just have to extract that information. If you put your hands down now, Daniel, you see it's green, put it up. And one of those is red. So basically we would have to have one for the left hand and one for the right hand. So I'll rig it up a little bit later. But this is enough to prove the point. So what can we trigger with this? I propose that we trigger an extra light. So I'm going to bring in a regular light. I'm going to make sure that this light is above Daniel. I'm going to make sure that this light is red. So it's very clear that something is indeed happening. I'm going to make it harsh. And a light has a property for brightness. So we could actually plug exactly that property. So from the hot zone, now we just need to extract information. So I'm going to use extractor. And the information that we're extracting is anything in the current hit zone. So current hit zone. There we go. And with that, let's just attach it to the brightness setting. So I'm setting it to 0. I'm going to set the scale to 2 because the scale was there too. All right, let's test this. Put this hand down, up. There we go. All of a sudden, we have a little trigger for the hand to sort of turn lights on and off. Now, as I mentioned, obviously, I actually need 2 trigger boxes or 2 hot zones to make this run. Alternatively, I could probably conjoin those 2 meshes with the combined geometry, but that's not something we're going to go into now. In fact, we can make this a little bit more funky. I'm a big fan of distortions or displacements. How about some motion data mesh? I'm going to connect that to the root. It's working. I'm going to make it a little bit more readable. Let's see, maybe this. And I'm going to make sure that as Daniel raises his hand, he actually activates this post effect as well. We have like a ton of post effects. So basically, if you're building something, hands up. If you're building something and you want to grade it, or you want to add those finishing touches, you can actually do it while you're building a 3D scene. So in a regular environment where you're doing your 3D pass, you would make your 3D pass or several of them, and then you could combine them in something like After Effects. And only then you would have an option to add color grading or any sort of tweakable post effects. In fact, we actually support LUTs, which I find as very, very useful tool. So I'm going to bring that in. I'm now in my resources. I'm going to grab just a little LUT back. Let's see. How about the ones from Grayscale Gorilla? That's another shout. If you now go to your browser or type in Grayscale Gorilla LUT, you will see a package that will set you off $99. It's approximately a price of a nice evening out in a pub. But since you cannot go to the pub, it's a sound investment. So all you have to do is just drop it to the resources, connect it to the root. All of a sudden, you have a ton of LUTs to choose from to make that sweet, sweet grading to sell it to your customer. I think I'm kind of fond of specialty milk skies. There we go. I think at this moment, I'll stop talking because I feel very lonesome here, and I'm going to start asking things and questions. Is there anything that is interesting to our viewers? Or perhaps Ryan has some input.
Yeah, Ryan, any feedback you want to give?
No, nothing coming up so far.
I know there were some questions in the meantime that people were just asking. Is data mosh a real-time reaction diffusion effect?
I was just about to answer that. No, reaction diffusion is a different kind of thing. I don't remember exactly what it is, but you can do reaction diffusion, but it's not data moshing.
So we have two options for reaction diffusion. You can do either the procedural reaction diffusion, or you can do that via fields. So it's one or the other. If you're interested about the fields option, please go ahead and plug up YouTube, go to Notch page and check out a live stream about fields. We literally talk about that and quite a few other things. If you like to put things on fire in a safe environment, that's a stream for you. Creative responsibly, burn things up. Any more questions?
Alan would like to see you try and do this with rigid bodies. The thing with that is you're going to have to change the way you sort of set it up quite a lot.
Yeah,
depending on how you want to do it.
It's going to be very expensive because rigid bodies account for each other. So all of a sudden, the computational input here is super, super big. So it's going to cost a lot.
What you could do is if you take a rigid body effector and plug that into the cloner, set it to sphere.
I am not willing to do this.
You just don't
Ryan,
do it.
Ryan, you have control of my screen. Go ahead, mate.
Can I?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just gave you remote control.
Oh, do I?
Yeah, there you go. This is Ryan,
this
by the
is
way.
too much power.
Do not abuse this. With great notes comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I've got to slowly navigate. The FPS on my end is probably about what you're seeing.
Excuses, I'd say.
Oh, it's going to happen, I'm sure. You just have to get down far enough right. If you want to start, maybe click.
This is exciting. I can just sit here and see what you're doing. I love Zoom.
What do you think? I
was gonna say I love the data stream from Daniel in Miami, being sent over to Armin in Norway, being controlled by Ryan in the UK. This is quite incredible.
That's a very good point. We're having a very vast network of connections here.
Very productive webinar.
Pause for a second.
If you want to kill my computer, Ryan,
I won't.
Well, while Ryan is killing my computer, I would like to mention that we have a auto recovery function. Should he actually manage to, or should he succeed in making my computer crash, I can always come back to Notch and press on auto recovery. That's available under the file menu. Auto recovery or auto save is happening every 2 minutes by default. You can change that in file preferences. There's actually a counter in the very bottom. As you see, there's quite a few stats here in the bottom. So it states the VRAM use, the GPU, CPU load, the pixel space, and the last bracket to the very right-hand side is auto save timing. So now it's counting 57, 58, 59 seconds since last save. So Ryan, please go ahead, kill my computer. I will recover.
It won't. It's not going to die, I swear. Let's see. No gravity. No floor. Go.
I think maybe we should. I think we would have a better luck if we used particle systems hydrodynamics, to be honest. I think it's just a little bit too messy now to go for proper rigid bodies on this setup.
Yeah, I can't quite. The frame rate over here is really slow, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
I'm going to take over and I'm going to show you alternative instead of rigid bodies for now. So I'm going to delete this rigid body effector. I'm going to delete the turbulence effector, and I'm going to grab a SPH effector. So if anyone can give me a shout out on what is SPH, Ryan, you're not allowed. Anyone? Someone? What is SPH?
What is SPH?
What is SPH? This is the only acronym I know. So I'm super pleased. Yes, it's smooth particle hydrodynamics. So with that said, this node is exactly what controls, for instance, gravity and weight. So in this case, particles are actually spawning from the mesh and they have a gravitational pull. So if we were to add something like a floor, for instance, shape 3D, and if we connect it to the root and we set it to a plane, and we make it a little bit lower, a little bit bigger, and now, for instance, we add another node, which is called collision. Collision effector. Ryan, you're still messing around with my mouse.
Sorry, I don't know how to stop.
It's being strong.
I think
here we go. I got it.
So render, yeah.
There we go. So I have a collision effector now. I'm going to connect it to the particle system because I want particle system to account for this flat surface there. So I'm going to say like, hey, if anything hits it, please bounce. There we go. Now we're bouncing. In fact, I'm going to give more particle life so we see it longer on the screen. Maybe 7 seconds. So this is a cheaper version of physics. This is definitely more affordable than rigid bodies. Rigid bodies is super accurate because all of a sudden every single particle or every single object accounts for each other and accounts for the shape of things. But trust me, this comes very expensive computationally. So if your end goal is to make a simulation that just interacts with a mesh, this is probably a much better choice. Indeed, just easier and slicker. Any more questions?
Just a quick one, and I don't know, do you know finger support-wise, is that dependent on the model?
How do you mean?
Like finger tracking, because I know we use a lot of models from Mixamo and stuff like that aren't rigged with fingers.
Yeah, so I think you guys have a V2 that actually has the whole finger set.
Yeah,
but I don't
and
think,
studio as well, yeah.
I don't think we support your fingers. We do support your suits though, and we support multiple suits. That is pro suits and studio suits. Basically, you can run several pros at the same time, and you can actually run several studios at the same time. Unfortunately, no fingers just yet. So you're flat palmed at the moment.
No, but understandable. Thank you. No, that was a question from the chat, so it makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Armin.
Sure thing. Happy to answer. Is there anything else? Should we do something fun? Perhaps. Do
you have? I know, and I'll post a link to this because you guys have the obviously like the gauge of what people's specs are. Do you have a minimum spec in your opinion that you would recommend for people to use?
Anything but Mac. I'm joking. If you want to double check where your system is standing against others, you can always go for benchmarking. You can run a benchmark and then you can submit it. So once it's submitted, you're going to be automatically transferred to a notch marks page. So we will see exactly where you stand against other GPUs and let's say media servers if you're a media server user. So as you see, the minimum spec that was tested was Intel UHD graphics 620. And that's not necessarily an impressive number there, 560. So I'm on RTX 2080 Ti. That's a reasonably powerful machine or a reasonably powerful GPU. I'd say minimum spec would be anything from GTX, let's say 1060. Yeah, 1060 and you're 1060 upwards and you're good to go.
I definitely think once you start creating more things in real time, like obviously you're creating and we're doing things over the cloud, the more I think it really depends on like how you're creating. I think when you're adding a lot of particles and fluids, you definitely want to bump that up to at least I'd say like at least a 1080.
So a big benefit of having underpowered GPU, you actually learn a lot about optimizing, a lot. We have a lot of tools for that too. So if you're working for specific frame rate or specific resolution, why can't I? Oh, there we go. Why can't I close you now?
I promise I'm not doing anything.
Oh, there we go. You sure you weren't doing anything?
I'm sure.
So we have a couple of tools that will assist you in optimizing your scene. So obviously we have some stats here in the bottom. I'm not certain you can actually see it well, but there's a FPS counter, there's GPU and CPU load, and there's RAM load here in the bottom. I'm hovering my mouse here so you can see that it's the very bottom bar. So we have a tool called Profiler. Once it's enabled and it's running, it's actually calculating every single node in the scene. And if the node produces somewhat significant intake of power, it actually expresses it as a numeric value. So for instance, perception neuron node doesn't cost anything in comparison to the rest. This 3D model doesn't cost anything. Clone to mesh is super cheap. Particles cost 0.6 millisecond on the GPU. And let's see. Well, for instance, voxel cone costs 7 milliseconds on GPU and 0.16 on CPU. So literally see what is eating your GPU. So for instance, if I was to optimize the scene, I see that this is the biggest hurdle for the system. I probably would drop down numbers here. So instead of something like voxel resolution to 56, I would go for 64. And I would hope that actually helps me with the numbers. I did gain a second. It doesn't look very nice, but I did gain a second. It's kind of a trade-off. So you sort of reduce the number somewhere and you bump up something until you're actually satisfied with the performance. Now, if you are preparing something for a specific graphics card or media server, you're not running it locally from this machine, we have another tool. It's called Performance. So in the Performance, you can stack your machine against any machine that we support. So there's a whole list of different graphics cards and media servers. For instance, I can see how would my machine hold up against, let's say, the Sky's 2x2 Plus. So here I get the stats for GPU milliseconds, CPU milliseconds, and target GPU estimation. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think more than enough. I think that's excellent tool.
Was that even the question then? Because I went far and wide.
Well, no. I think it's really great because I think everyone uses different computers, and I think when you're building up to this, there's a minimum that you guys want to use. But in terms of optimizing, I think all these tools are really important in the creation phase when you're adjusting the tools and parameters that you guys have.
I'd say optimization is one of those things where if you look at game engines today, like Unreal and Unity and stuff like that, the tools that you have to go into in order to optimize stuff is a whole world of stuff you need to pay attention to. And sometimes you can just work around it and just be like, well, I'm not going to go into that world of real-time ray tracing and stuff like that. But when you really want to do an effect like that, that's when you only really need to think about advanced setups like that.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the reasons why I actually enjoy Notch a lot, because I cannot write a single line of code. I could probably change a color in my website, so edit CSS in HTML, but that's pretty much it. But with Notch, I actually can deliver interactive and real-time settings, and it has all the tools necessary for me to double-check and optimize as I work and as I progress. So yeah, optimization is an art. There are people in the gaming industry, they're employed specifically for that task.
Yeah, no, very, very, very good point.
So I just added a little camera spin so we would have Daniel a little bit more dynamic.
Nice.
All right. Where's the camera? I'm trying to follow it.
Is there a way to smooth data? And I guess, I don't know, because I'm sure we're going to get piled in with a lot more questions. Is there anything additional that you wanted to kind of show, Armin?
I figured I'm going to show this, and I'll just see where the community leads me forward. I just wanted to show that, there's a ton of little tools, and they all connect together to bring out a more complex setting. And if you have something like a motion capture suite, not only you can output that as a mesh, but you actually can use it as an interactive tool. So In this case, we're triggering the light. But imagine if you had a CEO giving a speech and it's a corporate event. All of a sudden, if CEO is wearing that suit, beneath his actual suit, he can raise his hand to the left. It's the next slide. To the left, it's a previous slide. Or if you're with a rock star or a talent, all of a sudden you can account for that suit with a virtual light. So that virtual light could be sending DMX signal to a light desk, and then it could be actually controlled with the actual light aligned, if that makes sense. So basically you can build a virtual world that is tracking in the real world. So basically you could build a real follow spot just with motion suit. I hope that makes sense.
No, absolutely. No, thank you so much. I think that's awesome. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask us, send them both to the Q&A section, to the chat. They'll probably get more lost in the chat than in the other sections just because there's a lot of communication there.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I don't expect that everybody will be able to ask every question that are of interest to a person. We have a strong community on Facebook. So it's a Notch user group in Facebook. Please join that. It's friendly people. There's a lot of knowledge going about. Everybody's willing to share it. Just ask questions there. You will get far and wide if you actually join the community there and ask anything and everything you're concerned about. Now, if you're building something with Notch and you are proud of it and you want to showcase that, please use hashtag Made with Notch, and if you upload it to Instagram, we're happy to see you there. And if we see you, we can actually show you. So basically, we can reshare your stuff. We as a company, we get a lot of suggestions to do graphics for specific shows or specific tours, but that's not what we do. We actually produce motion graphics tool Notch. So we don't do graphics, we do the tool. But if we know that there's someone who is actually good, we're super pleased to send people who are asking these questions towards the user saying like, oh, check out Instagram, this tag. You know what, in North America, there's these guys, they're amazing. In Europe, there's this person right there. We've seen his stuff, we love him. He's amazing, please check it out. And to be honest, we get quite a few of these requests. So we are super, super happy to pass it on to the user base so they can actually go and fulfill various interesting jobs.
I think that was a really nice way to kind of clue, because Armin's right. There's a massive community of users, really nice, and even hobbyists and enthusiasts. Both, the Notch user group on Facebook, which has a lot of people, and if you guys are more specific to Japan, for example, there's also the Notch user group Japan for you guys to join. Armin's there, as well as Ryan and some of the team.
To be honest, in Japan, we have a representative there. We have a good friend. He's a founder of that group. So just go ahead there. It's already people who are using it, and they're going to be super helpful for you in Japanese if you are not comfortable in English, for instance.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a user group on WeChat for those of you that are in China as well. So we can share all that information afterwards with you guys. But I think that's really great that you guys have the ability to tap into a network of professionals that are here to help you. And that's ultimately what the team at Notch is there for.
We're here for you. Just let us know what you need.
So, all right, I think that wraps up the Q&A. It'll be great to see Ryan, everybody just come up from the videos and stuff, so we can.
Yeah. I'll pop up my video. Was there anything else that you were going to show?
No, I was thinking to stop sharing, hit the save button, and send you the link to this specific thing that we built. If anyone is interested, perhaps to grab this file. Yeah,
I think. So as Armin mentioned, he's going to be sharing this file with everyone. So we all have the ability to kind of play around with it after. You'll have the data from there. I know some people are asking if we provide data. So on our website, sent the link there on the downloads page. You have the ability to download the software book from PM32 to Studio. There's motion files available there for you guys to tap into and do some pre-recorded data and do takes. Everything that we're doing here was live in real time. So Daniel was moving around in Miami. But there are certain things I saw people asking questions. If you're able to, I think some people are having difficulties in terms of like binding things or maybe using those hot zones with someone who's moving. I don't know if you have any recommendations for that, Armin.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So let me pull that up in the chat because I may have not.
While you're doing this, I'm going to
correctly.
point out that Ryan is using an upcoming feature that we're going to release hopefully very soon. You can actually use Notch directly in streaming apps. So anything from Zoom to OBS to you name it. So you can actually use Notch for building filters. As we have, as I mentioned, a ton of post effects available. So you can build all your crazy and use that for all your streaming purposes. I think that's more interesting now than ever because everybody's a little bit homebound for a couple of months.
I wanted to do a nice reveal, but I screwed it up.
Oh no!
Should we look away and turn back again?
It's too late now.
Yeah.
The cat is out of the bag.
Did you find that question, Alex?
No, I can't. So I apologize. Send it again because we'll get back to it.
No worries.
Just one thing. Yeah.
I'm just going to give again the very shout that please join Notch Facebook user group. Ask questions there. Anything that I personally build or Ryan builds, anybody in the team, and we deem it worthy for people to see, like, oh, this is maybe an interesting technique. We always share that with the project files and a little description. And obviously, there's a lot of official tutorials coming out, and there's a lot of official streams about specific parts of the tool and so on and so forward. So let's just keep in touch.
That's very, very good. Thank you, Armin. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just let me wrap up on, I think there's 2 questions that I want to get to. There's one in the Q&A asking about smoothing data within Neudem or within Notch. I know on our side, if you're doing pre-recorded data, you absolutely have the ability to smooth out before you export into Notch. But you can't do smoothing out in real time. Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong. There's different things that you can adjust to make the data capture look cleaner, but you can't smooth from our side.
I'm going to quickly mention that we have a whole system of modifiers. One of the modifiers that we have is called smooth envelope modifier. So basically anything piped through smooth envelope modifier gets Bezier treatment. So all of a sudden you have an attack and decay properties available for you. So I'm not going to go full in on what does it do and how does it rig, but you could definitely find a way to take advantage of this node in your setup. So if you're interested about any of these nodes, I was going rather fast, not going to details of any of them. You can always double check things about the nodes by pressing a question mark here in a UI panel. I'm going to be brought straight to the manual page specifically about that specific node. For instance, the smooth envelope modifier. Or you can do the same thing from the nodes property. So you can go for node, right click, manual page, and you will have a nice description and even a little asset file available. Ryan is working relentlessly in providing those. Thank you, Ryan. Slow clap for you. You've been touched.
I think that's it. Other than that, unless any final words, I really want to thank everyone for joining us today. It was a super exciting class. Again, those motion files will be available afterwards. There's assets and resources that you guys could use. Again, the Notch user group on Facebook, all the manuals, tutorials that Ryan and Armin are working on. And hopefully, quarantine ends quite soon because I do want to see Armin back on the road doing classes, teaching everyone who is interested in Notch. Before all this ended, we were supposed to do the one in Miami. That was coming up next month.
I so look forward to shaking your hands, guys, to everyone who's here in the chat and everyone who's here with the face cam. I really do look forward to a workshop and a good evening out with one or the other adult beverage, talking about things related to Notch or just general things.
Yes. So I definitely thank you, Armin. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. I know I saw Sarah and some of the other people from the Notch community inside. I can't thank you enough for the support that you guys have for the integration with with our suite, with our hardware, and all the different things that you guys have been creating, and for experimenting for the first time, doing some remote testing over the cloud with Daniel and Miami, which I am still super amazed that we were able to lock this down.
I had an absolute blast. Thank you guys for hosting us, for having us. This was great fun. I hope we're going to make a couple of more of these as we progress, perhaps more directed to specific questions, should there be any. But thank you for having us. And I really enjoyed being here, and I'm sure so did Ryan.
Yeah, we're going to be posting this video up afterwards, probably not today, but pretty soon. So that everything that Armin worked on that may have looked very fast, you guys can review it afterwards.
I'm going to repeat myself by saying if you head to NOTCH.1, we have a learning section. We actually have a full school available there called Essential Training. We cover quite a few things there. And soon we're going to roll out intermediate training there too. It's all absolutely free of charge. At least where COVID is happening, we see that people need to spend time wisely. So training is our number one priority now. We're working lots and lots to provide more tools and more options for people to train up and learn.
Armin spent a lot of time locked in a dark room recording those, so he really wants them to be acknowledged.
Thank you, Armin. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to the rest of the people, James and Ari, who were answering questions in the chat. Daniel for always being our go-to Mocap guy, streaming over from any location around the world. You can end at any point, but thank you guys again so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone that was here participating.
No problem.
Can't wait to do this again. Ryan, go feed your cat.
Yeah,
all right. See you guys. Have a good day or a good evening, depending on where you are. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.